the bigger the building, the longer it can take to negotiate. Now, this one's absurdly long. I've closed on a commercial building, I think in 3 days is the shortest time. But it was a pretty small building. It had one tenant. It was fully leased. There were no variables to deal with. But usually, the bigger the building, the more due diligence you have to do, the more leases there are. The leases are more complex. So I just want to manage expectations. We may do a deal today, but the chances of that happening are relatively small, whereas had this been a residential course, as I said, we could do a deal today pretty easily. Anything below 80% occupancy is considered by banks to be distressed. Holy smoke, I would have thought anything below 30% is distressed. Below 80 is distressed, but that's good because the whole world thinks it's distressed, including other speakers we had this morning, and that's good because they're not interested, they don't touch it. We wouldn't buy it at 57% occupancy, hoping that, we'll stumble across a tenant. Because what if it gets worse? It's been getting worse for the last few years. And we've now got a national occupancy rate in office space that is horrendous. It comes with this parking building, guys. 357 parks from memory. But so a parking building like this is huge. The one across the road, yes. So a Canadian firm, ironically, bought that one and did a similar thing where they bought it as spec and then redid all the floors and rented it out. The white triangular building, it used to be a BMO building that everyone but Stephanie may remember from yesterday. It's just a mile or so down the road. It was converted from office space to residential. And as Owen says, every time that happens, it makes the value of remaining office buildings more because there's less competition. And all the office occupants that were in that building have now been kicked out or they had to leave. And they're now after buildings like this. Just to let you know, in addition to these apartments, which are brand new, I think these are less than 6 months old, within 1 mile of here, they are building 4,500 apartments. What does that tell you? That there'll be probably 9,000, if the average of 2 people per apartment, whatever the number is, extra people who have jobs around here, who work at the university, who work at the medical facilities, who work at the Bank of America and the architect's firm in there, but also new firms that need space. So every time you have increasing population, you have increased demand for every category of real estate. So the question is, what sort of tenants were we considering? Basically, as long as it's moral and legal and looks good, then we welcome them.
We ended up finding a shared office space. Okay.
So like Riga situation, WeWork type environment. So that's good. That brings in a lot of people. Then there are a lot of office workers here. They need their babies and kids looked after. So we were looking at a what do you call it? A childcare. And they're in the same building. You don't have a separate commute to drop them off or pick them up. So that's becoming increasingly popular. So I noticed that businessmen in particular like to be close to their meetings. Along the strip, there are 127,000 hotel rooms. Average occupancy in Vegas is about 1.6 people per room. So that's about 250,000 people who go to Vegas. And those hotel rooms would be packed so that I couldn't go and do my business of looking for real estate there. But I'd get the JW Marriott 20 miles out or something. So I kept on thinking, if business people want small rooms, how small can we go? My theory was, why not put one side of the bed against another wall? You can have smaller rooms. And then why not have the foot end of the bed close to a wall as well? So we did that, and then we had a sculptured table that came out. So the room was barely as long and a bit wider than the bed. You had enough room to get dressed and a bathroom area that was slotted in. We had the smallest rooms in the industry. What did that mean? We could retrofit existing buildings into hotels that no conventional brand with a minimum room size of 300 square feet, is that about 250, 300, could do. Our rooms were so small, some of the rooms didn't have windows facing the outside. Is that a problem? No, because we put 80-inch LCD screens there, and you had an image of what you would have seen had it been a window. But if you didn't like that view, you could dial up Central Park in New York, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, the Twin Towers in Kuala Lumpur. People loved it. They'd stare at that stupid wall for hours, flicking through all the options. With our smallest rooms in the industry at a price point of $65, which is ridiculously cheap, we had 93% occupancy. So sometimes doing things differently actually works in your favor. So the thought, that's a long-winded way of saying the thought of putting a couple of floors of hotel, not only am I not suspicious that would it work, I think it's a hot idea. I think there will be people who, when they find out about it, say, I'm going to sleep in a Bank of America building. I wonder if I can get access to the vaults or whatever crazy things they'll say. It's always thinking outside of the box. And the more you train yourself to do the more you just get a passion for doing it. What else can we do with this? What else can we do with this? So I would personally love there to be a play school in there, a childcare facility, a hotel, a bar on the roof. There's nothing on the roof. My mind goes to helicopters. Gary, is he with us? No, he's not. He flies the darn things. He's landed on buildings all over town. I used to have a helicopter here in town. I used to, where can I land, This has got a roof. I think we could easily have a bar up there, like just a nighttime bar or a restaurant. Even if the actual restaurant is on the top floor, but you have a stairway and then you've got tables and chairs there. So I think there's hidden opportunity there too, depending on zoning code and all that. It's how creative can you get? Let's go for a walk. Hey guys, just one quick point that's kind of interesting is you see these white bands along the building horizontally? They're lit up at night with neon lights, white neon, and it's really stunning. From miles down Central, whether you're uptown or downtown, you see these white bands along the stark black building. So it really stands out beautifully at night. It's a well-known landmark. So you can see this is Central Avenue. They recently put in the light rail. We never had any kind of public transportation apart from a couple of old dilapidated buses. And they never thought the light rail would work. The first phase cost $7 billion. They thought it was going to run at a tremendous loss. It's been one of the most successful civic programs in the city. They're now extending it another 19 miles. It goes all over. And it's fun just to jump on and see where it takes you sometimes. So there's that. In the distance, you can see a lot of commercial buildings here. But you might see the U-Haul sign there. U-Haul is a kind of very American brand. It's part of Americana. That is actually the world headquarters of U-Haul. For some odd reason, it's in Phoenix and it's right across the road from this building. Well, diagonally across the road. Anyway, there it is. So we've stopped here to look at this building. It's known as the Bank of America building. It's a very prominent building on Central Avenue, which is one of the main drags in the CBD of Phoenix. It's been on the market for a while now, 14 stories high, 187,000 square feet, only 57% leased. Most people say that's not very good. Banks consider a building distressed if it's below 80% leased. So this one's definitely distressed. I'll only consider it if we can figure out a way of getting the occupancy rate up. So we've been in negotiations with a number of people. One of them is Regis, the people behind the shared office space. Another one is a childcare facility. We're talking with a hotel who's considering converting 2 floors to hotel rooms. And then we're looking at turning some of it into skiff space, if you know what that is. It gets a much higher rental per square foot than conventional office space. And we've been negotiating the price. We've managed to get it down a bit. It's a sign of the market. Prices are sagging on a lot of commercial buildings. And of course, you don't want to buy a building that might have cost $160 million 5 years ago. You can now buy for $30 million if you don't know what to do with it. But by getting a tenant lined up for a building like this, we believe the rental would come up. The value would be worth more to us tenanted with our new tenants than it is to the seller as is. And that's what we've been working on. We actually had an offer in there. They were considering it. We were going to get confirmation of our equity. We already had debt funding confirmed. We were going to get confirmation of our equity next week. And then a few days ago, they put it up for auction. We don't know why. We don't know if it was a ruse to try and force our arm on it. We don't know whether they were forced to bring it to auction by perhaps their lenders on it, or whether there's another reason. We'll never know. We hear that they agreed on a price, but it hasn't gone through yet. It might come back to us, it might not. This is just the nature of the game. Remember, you have to look at 100 properties to find 10 worthy of putting offers in. And when you put 10 offers in, they won't all be accepted. If they are all accepted, you're offering too much. So maybe only 3 get accepted. And we still come by them, we have to get funding for 3. And if 2 fall over, you've managed to buy 1. You've looked at 100 to buy 1. And if that one falls over 2, you have to look at another 100. On average, sometimes more, sometimes fewer. Anyway, that's the nature of the game, but that's why we're here looking at this building. So I'm out here today with my creative mastermind group. We find creative ways of doing business deals, of doing residential deals, and in particular doing commercial deals. If you think you could benefit from finding out how we think differently and what we do differently to massively increase the value of a piece of real estate without necessarily spending much money, then click the link below to find out how you can join us on our next excursion to a city which is often chosen at random.